If you ever need us, we're here for you. And I think that's what families just want to hear.
Yeah.
They just want to know you're there for them.
Yeah.
And once you feel that connection and you've made that connection with those families, they'll show up. Yeah. You just got to, give them time, give them that space. And then once they know they're comfortable in this building, they'll come back.
Welcome to She Leads. I'm your host, Thea, and I'm so glad that you've joined in. She Leads is a place for women to talk about leadership, faith, and relationships. And I've just been overwhelmed and joyed with the outcome of support and encouragement for this little dream I had about a year ago, and that finally got to make it happen. And so thank you for your support. I also want to say thank you for joining in the conversation. I'd love to continue to receive your comments and feedback. So please email me at sheleadscomments@gmail.com and join in the conversation. Today, I'm excited to welcome back Jennifer Burkhart to continue our conversation about faith and families and leadership. So Jennifer, reintroduce yourself and then tell us something fun we wouldn't find on your resume.
So my name is Jennifer Burkhart. Something fun you wouldn't find on my resume. So I danced on the dance team in high school for 4 years.
Yeah, super fun. Me too.
Yes, nice.
I don't know if we ever talked about
that. I don't think we had.
Yeah. I always joke and say I was a dancer. I wasn't the best, but I had a lot of energy. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. The best shape of my life.
Yeah. Well, it's also high school.
Well, that's true.
All right. So, Jennifer, currently you are the director of the preschool ministry at Chapelwood United Methodist Church. And so I want to talk a little bit about how faith plays a role in families. How did faith play a role in your family when you were growing up?
So I did not come from that family that went to church on Sundays, prayed at meals. I did not come from that background. My grandma was a big part of helping raise me growing up. So I think she had more of the impact, me personally, on who God was, who Jesus was, taking that next step. Mm-hmm. I didn't get baptized until I was in 7th grade. I didn't even know what that was until going to VBS. And as an older kid, I didn't go with the younger age that is typical now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I did not go to the church. When I met my husband, he was not part of a church either. And so our agreement when we got married was once we started a family, we would find that church home that we felt was comfortable to raise our child in that. Because that's what we wanted for her that we did not have. And not saying that it's, hurt us or broke us or anything like that. But seeing it now as an adult, I wish I did have some of those connections that I could have reached out to with some troubles, as a teen that I was having, or I just want my child to know, she is supported, she is loved, not just from mom and dad.
What role does faith play in your family today?
Like how?
Like, how is it important to you?
That's a tough one. Don't really ask that. You don't ask yourself that question. Why are you doing that? Because, we wanted our child to make that own decision of getting baptized, of taking that next step of confirmation. Because we were the same way. We did not get baptized as a child. We did not baptize her as a young child. But I think it's important as a family for us to know our faith, even if we question sometimes, why is this happening? But being in the position I'm in and having the faith I have now, I know now it's okay to ask those questions. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to ask and be mad of, why did you do that? Why Why this? Why that? And I know it's okay to ask those questions. But I didn't have that before. But I also want my daughter and my husband and I both to tell, for her to know it's okay. You can question those things. He's not going to be mad at you, but your faith makes you stronger and it makes you who you are.
Yeah. I don't know if I said it on here, but someone pointed out recently that you can't have faith without doubt. Then it would just be knowing. It's actually the doubt that makes it faith. And how too often we think I have to have this, faith is some sort of blind, courageous, completely confident, completely assured. And yet the doubt is actually an essential piece. That's why it's called faith. Where are you seeing faith in families today? So you work with families, you lead a preschool. I know you're you have relationships with those families. Where do you see faith involved in that?
I mean, they choose a faith-based preschool for a reason. They know we're going to pray before meals. Every meal that we have, we're going to pray before that meal. They know we're going to go to chapel. For me, even if they don't have it at home, they're obviously wanting some sort of that in their child's life. Even if they don't have it at home, they are coming to me for a reason. So making sure that child knows, yes, this is the sanctuary. We're going to go in here. We're going to have a good time. And we're going to learn that Jesus loves you. Here's some stories that we're going to learn about that are in the Bible. But parents, if they don't have it at home, those are the parents I need to be reaching. Those are the parents that obviously they want that connection, but they haven't found it yet. Because they want their kids to obviously have that connection.
Yeah. I think it's a very interesting piece that a lot of church leaders should probably take notice, because having a day school, a preschool at a church campus is not unique to Chapelwood. A lot of United Methodist churches offer a day school of some sort. A lot of churches offer that. And it tends to be you're reaching people who don't come on Sunday, who are not involved in the faith community. But they are people who have chosen a faith preschool for a reason. And I think that's a really interesting piece that we should probably begin to at least wonder, what is the reason? And maybe lean in and dare to find out, what is it that these families are needing, are searching for? What do they believe? And how is the faith-based preschool offering that? Talk to me as we talk about, maybe churches daring to ask that question and taking notice. What are some of your hopes, dreams for family ministry as a whole? I mean, not just your church, but the church. What could churches be doing today to truly serve families?
I think churches, they have to realize times are not like they used to be. Young families now, we're busy. There's no more of the no practices or games on Wednesday nights, or much less throughout any of the week. There's games on Sundays now. The times aren't the same. And just because we're not there doesn't mean we don't want to be there. I think churches have to realize we have to start changing how we're doing our services, the times we're doing our services, just to meet families. Because if we're not getting these young families in, we're not going to have a church anymore. And I think that's the big thing, is that we have to be willing to change those things in order to keep the church alive and keep it going, because they want to be there. They do. It's just time is hard. Parents, they both work now. Families aren't off on Sundays anymore. My husband's a prime example of that. He works almost every Sunday, and it's not that he doesn't want to be at church. He can't be at church because he's providing for his family, which is what the man is supposed to do too, is provide. But I think the churches have to realize that in order to make those changes and adapt to the things that are coming with these younger families and this new generation we're becoming.
I definitely remember when I was at the church after I served with you, there were a lot of concerns about families being at the ball field on Sunday morning. And there was frustration with that. There was, and I want to give these people credit. It just wasn't how they were raised. It wasn't how things were when they were raising children, even when their grandchildren were dealing with that. And what I remember thinking and saying out loud a few times, okay, if all the young people are at the ball field, let's go there. What would it be like if we showed up with coolers full of snacks and water and juice and big signs, and we just said, whatever, hometown heroes, we're your fans. And we sat in the stands, and maybe someone would be like, who are you? What are you doing here? And we just said, we're the church down the street, and we decided we would adopt this team, and we're just here to cheer them on. And maybe some would at first be like, oh, you're trying to get us. But if we showed up repeatedly, truly, just with snacks and signs and support, like what that might tell these families in the stands about what the church really thinks about them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even showing up to the youth, to their games. For instance, my daughter plays soccer. She's on a competitive soccer team. There's a man in the church, and he asks for her schedule every single time.
Yeah.
And when he shows up, he's there cheering her on.
Yeah.
And my daughter knows that he's there. And if in the event that she needs someone to talk to, she knows she can call him or just go knock on his door or any of that. Yeah. But even like the youth supporting the youth, my daughter goes to one of the seniors or just graduated seniors, and she comes to her games. I think just if more people within the church did that to the youth, you would see that that connection more.
Yeah.
As a preschool director, I always make sure and go out to the t-ball games, the soccer games of all my 4-year-olds. Yeah. Not because it's not an advertisement for me.
They're done.
Yeah. I mean, they're in my program. Why do I need to? For me, it's, oh my gosh, Miss Jennifer's here. It's that excitement. And I get excited just to see little kids playing like that because my daughter's not at that age anymore. And I think that the same would be for congregation members. If they were to get out and go to these youth games to where these are the youth within your church, get out there and show them that you support them, that you're still behind them, even though they're not there because they're busy. They're doing their schoolwork. They're doing all of that. But go into their game, just, we're here to support you. It's a huge...
Go where the people are. I've been saying recently, I can't find in the Gospels where Jesus says, build a big building and cry because nobody comes. I read Jesus say, go, over and over and over, even to those disciples who are hiding up there in that upper room after the resurrection. Like, what are you still doing here? Get out. Go tell somebody this truth, right? Go show up where the people are. I wanted to share this vision. I don't know if I've shared this with you, but one of my most favorite moments at Chapelwood was on preschool family picnic day. And I would say 98% of the preschool families came. We had like 2 or 3 kids whose parents just couldn't get off for whatever reason. And they were out there too, but everyone had a picnic. And these kids of all ages and families of all ages were, these kids are hopping back from picnic blanket to picnic blanket, sharing just whatever fries or apple slices or just smiles and smudges and making a mess. But it was just this beautiful vision of the kingdom. These families who were coming from different places and spaces, most of them we didn't know what's really going on. Most of them were not showing up on a Sunday morning or at any of our events. And yet there was this space where they could be, And so I feel like, one, yes, I'm firmly believe we as the church, we as Christians have to get outside of ourselves. We have to go where the people are. But then also create spaces where the families are already naturally gathering. you and I would talk about that. I would say, you already have a community. Why are we so pushing for these people to show up on another day? How do we foster the community they already have? How do we support that? How do we pray for them? How do we just show up and say, if you need a pastor, I'm here? And I can remember a few families, crisis happened, things were going on. They said, I need a pastor. Great. It's not the first time you're meeting me. And so let's talk, let's pray, just to know you're not alone in this. You know, I wonder what it would be like if we, the church, could be a little more open to serving our families right where they are. And like you said, recognizing it's different. We can be mad about it. We can be sad about it. We can have feelings that it's different. It's different. What are we going to do? You know, we're just going to be mad that they're not the way it used to be? Or how do we show up where they already are? What might the church learn? Let's fast forward. The church does this, right? They hear this podcast. They just take our great idea and they run with it. What do you think the church might learn? What do you think church-going Christians might learn today by embracing families where they are?
I think they get more acceptance. Families don't not want to come to church. Our lives are so busy right now. Like I said, between sports and schoolwork and just work in general for families, if we were more open and willing to change, we might just see a different crowd on Sunday mornings. Or why does it have to be on Sunday morning? You know?
Yeah.
You might get a different type of Sunday morning or Wednesday, whenever it may be, or it's at the fields, wherever it is. You may see a different crowd. You may see a higher participation whenever and wherever it may be. Or when you cry for that help of, hey, this broke, or we need some help cleaning this mess up. You may get more participation if you're willing to bend a little on this side and we'll bend a little bit here. Somewhere you got to meet in the middle or it's not going to work.
Yeah. I even wonder too, by leaning in and learning more, you might be able to fill a real need. You know, I think so often too, we, the church, want to just say, this is the solution you need without even asking what's going on. You know, we think, well, get into church, get a part of a church, start even pray more. We're like, well, these people maybe they already are praying. Maybe they read their Bible every day. Maybe that's not what they're missing. So, if we're willing to embrace and show up where families are, we might learn a real need. And then I would argue, I wonder too, if we might not share the gospel, live a life that says, I've been transformed and this transformation has been offered to you too. It's through Jesus Christ. And whenever that relationship is built, I think that trust would be there too, that someone could even hear that. So I can definitely agree with that. Like you might learn something. You might lean in, and maybe your heart could be softened to what families are really dealing with. One of the ideas I think I had at Chapel, what it just came to me was, let's give every young every kid that were in the program an assigned grandma or grandpa, and say, okay, because a lot of our young families in Lake Jackson were transplants, so they weren't from that area, and so there's no family around. And I thought, what would it be like if we took this older generation and said, okay, you now have adopted Joseph, and so on his birthday and his games, like what would that look like to just say, this is my grandson? Because obviously, honestly, their grandchildren did not live in Lake Jackson. And so like, what would that be like? And I think that's another place where you can say, hey, what do you have and what needs might you fill if you're willing to think about it a little differently? Yeah. And if we take that even out into beyond the church, just to our communities, to our world, we could even say politics, like if more people were willing to lean in with families, what might we learn? How might we be different?
I think we'd learn that we're similar. A A lot of our things are the same. It's just our age may be different, yes, and the way you did things may be different, but deep down inside, we're the same. The same beliefs, the same love, the same, all of that. It's the same, but we have to take the time to bend a little bit to learn that just because there's this giant age gap between us, you know what? We still have that same love for Christ, and I'm here for you, and you're here for me. How can we meet?
Yeah. That just makes me think about how every culture, food is at the center. Mm-hmm. Every culture has music.
Yes.
Every culture has art. Every culture has some sort of family central unit, right? How these things, no matter where you are across the globe, across socioeconomic, whatever, faith, there are some things that are just essential to the human existence. And that's what I'm hearing you say is maybe we could kind of get pulled back to some of that if we were willing to maybe remove our staunch exteriors. This is how it's supposed to be, and see, oh, not that different. Yeah, that sounds really good. Like very hopeful, and would tell me why. I mean, that would answer even for me why family ministry is important. You know, I had to write a bunch of papers to get ordained, and one of them was like, where are you practicing diversity in your ministry? And I was like, oh, I focus on families.
Yeah.
Because every family, while there's that undergoing similarities, they're all dealing with unique circumstances. And so if we're willing to lean in there, we're going to learn those different. Even if I am at a church where most of the people look a lot the same and are in the same income bracket, their families are very diverse and how they're made up, and they're dealing with diversity there too. So what would you offer one step a leader could take today if they wanted to reach families, if they wanted to be in relationship with families, if they're at their church and there has not been a child there in 20 years? That's one step you would encourage them to take.
Well, if there is a preschool or day school at their church, connect with that director and say, hey, how can I support you? Where can I be? I will say at Chapelwood, we've grown a lot within the last 4 years. We offer a muffins with, I forgot what I called it this year, but it's all the female role models that are in that child's life. And then we do a donuts with grown-ups. That's all the males in that child's role model. And the last two years, the United Methodist Men have put on that donuts with Dad, and the United Women in Faith the last 2 years have done the muffins, and they've connected and they've spoken with those families and just interacting. They're not saying, hey, do you have a church? Yeah. No, they're just, hey, thanks. You know, we're glad you're here at Chapelwood. If you ever need us, we're here for you. And I think that's what families just want to hear. Yeah. They just want to know you're there for them. Yeah. And once you feel that connection and you've made that connection with those families, they'll show up. Yeah. You just got to, give them time, give them that space. And then once they know they're comfortable in this building, they'll come back.
Right. Yeah. That's great. That's great. Thank you so much again for sharing today and coming to talk about faith and families. How can listeners connect with you if they've loved what they've heard and they want to hear more, learn more? Where can they find you?
So I am at Chapelwood Preschool Ministries. You can find us on Facebook, Chapelwood Preschool Ministries. You can reach me via email, preschool@chapelwoodumc.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of She Leads. Once again, I would love for you to join the conversation. Please email me your feedback, your comments, your questions to sheleadscomments@gmail.com. I'd love to hear your ideas on how we, the church, can better serve families. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time. She Leads is produced by me, Thea Curry-Fuson, recorded and edited by Pearland Podcast Studios. All thoughts and expressions shared by the guest are theirs and not the organizations they're affiliated with. Thanks for tuning in. Check us out next week to continue the conversation on She Leads.